one. We are farmers.
Underwritten by Farmers Truck Fire Insurance Exchanges and Affiliates. Products not available in every state.
Hello, DMV. This is Ramona Jones McClain, your insurance guru. I am a farmer's agent located at 11707 Ricestown Road in Ricestown, Maryland. Here, you can call me at 443-660-7131 or listen to my show every Thursday at 3:30 p.m. on WOLB. Hello, welcome to the Insurance Guru Show, where we talk about all things insurance. My name is Ramona Jones McClain, and I'm a farmer's agent at 6 Hanover Road, Ricestown, Maryland. You can call me anytime at 443-660-7131.
5, 3, 2, 1, whenever you're ready.
Hello, DMV. This is Ramona Jones McClain, your insurance guru, and we are here live coming out of Ricestown, Maryland. And we are here today to talk about springtime. I love springtime. I love the flowers and the sun and the thawing and everything that comes with spring, because you can walk outside barefooted, like for the first time for all year. And then until April showers. You know that old expression, April showers brings May flowers. Well, when it rains, it comes with a whole lot of other issues. And sometimes, I don't know about this year, because this year, it's not scheduled to rain all week. But sometimes in the spring, we get a lot of rain because of the changing of the seasons. And what does rain mean? Rain means water. And one of the issues we're going to be talking about all month, we're going to talk about water and how water affects where you live, what coverages you should have on your homeowner's insurance, and what to do about it. Today's show is on backup sewage and drainage, and I have with me my guest, Mr. Mike Dottrio from Dottrio, which is a company in Maryland that is a public adjuster. And if you have a claim, he can assist you, help you, break it down for you, go in there and stand for you, make sure everything that you need to get is what you should have. In fact, Mr. Dottrio, I have a policy holder I'm going to refer you to. Absolutely. Tell us about your company and what you guys do.
So Dottrio is the first public adjuster firm in the state of Maryland that also is licensed as a contractor. I don't do any contracting anymore. It's been a long time since I have, but it is a helpful credential in dealing with the insurance company. Anyone who's had an insurance claim recently can tell you as a result of COVID that there's been a massive amount of turnover at the insurance companies that result in significant delays in getting your claims addressed. The experience and competency levels of adjusters often is not what it was in years past, meaning that even if you get your claim addressed promptly, it may not be done properly or fairly. Sometimes that is not the result of someone lacking in effort, but more so just lacking in experience and skill and competency. And that's what happens when you have a large contingent of youthful adjusters, which is the case right now at most major insurance companies. So what we do as a public adjuster firm is we represent policyholders, commercial and residential, in first-party claims. So that's against your own homeowner's insurance or your own business owner's insurance. We represent the policyholder against the insurance company, if you will. Hopefully it's not an against situation, not an adversarial one, hopefully. But insurance companies need T's crossed and I's dotted in order to pay a claim fairly. And what we do is make sure that those T's are crossed and those I's are dotted in a way that a policyholder often doesn't have the knowledge and skill set to do. And thereby we can help negotiate a fair settlement, a prompt settlement, and then, understand and explain the policy conditions to the policyholder. And unfortunately, oftentimes we need to explain them to the insurance adjuster as well, because sometimes they just tend to be a little young at this point in time. And that's a relatively recent occurrence, like I said, since 2019, 2020, when COVID first hit. A lot of the long-time adjusters, people with 20 and 30 years experience, have since left the industry. They were bought out, replaced with much, much less experienced staff. And as a result, the needs for our services are probably higher than they ever have been.
Wonderful. And how can people reach you?
The best way to reach us is either on our website, www.dottrio.com, and Dottrio is spelled Dottrio. So www.dottrio.com. Local phone numbers 301-971-4040, and toll free is 1-844-DOTTRIO. So any of those methods are fine to reach us, and the calls are answered 24 hours a day. So if you do call even after hours, someone will be available to answer the call. And depending on the severity of the situation, we may address it right away, or we may choose to address it the following morning, just depending on what the nature of the call is. But we do handle emergency calls quite often.
All right. So what I want to do first is I want to define what backup sewer and drainage claim is. Because we're talking about spring rains, one of the indicators of a definition is during a heavy downpour, your sump pump fails, causing water to back up into your finished basement, damaging your children's playroom or toys or personal items, or your bar that you set up downstairs, or when roots grow into a septic line outside your home, causing the sewage to back up into your home, flooding it with sewer water. All of your personal property in your basement or lower level, and this usually is a situation of damage from water in your lower level. Very rarely is it on the first floor unless you're a rancher. If water is rising up that high, then we're dealing with something else, and this is not a backup sewer and drainage claim. Okay, so I just want to go over it again. During a heavy downpour, your sump pump fails, or maybe your sump pump fails because it's just wear and tear, or maybe your sump pump fails because it's so overworked it can't handle the amount of water that's coming in. A few years ago, was that about that was pre-COVID? Remember we had all that rain in Baltimore, where it was just water everywhere, and it was so much, and streets were underwater, and water was just backing up. It's one of the reasons why I tell clients I would never sell a property policy in this area without backup sewer and drainage on it. And it doesn't mean that one slips by me where I'm thinking the coverage is on it because I asked for it, and come to find out that the insurance company did not put it on there. That recently happened to me, where I'm arguing with them now, trying to provide proof that I did request for that coverage to be on there and it should have been on there. But what causes a sewer backup? Clogged pipes, right? Drain pipes can be clogged for various reasons, whether it's debris and garbage, whether it's roots and plants. And we're going to talk about this in a couple weeks, landscaping, how you have to be careful how you plant gardens and trees and things around your house, because they can affect how water pools up against your house. And what are some of the other causes, Mike, of a backup sewer and drainage issue?
So some of the causes that can cause water to come back into the house, that, and I'll go from that wouldn't be covered because that's probably pretty important. Water that comes through a block wall in a basement is generally not covered by your insurance policy. So your insurance policy usually excludes earth movement. It excludes hypostatic pressure, which is water that actually comes through a block wall and comes into the house just because of water pressure. So oftentimes you'll see that in people that don't have a sump pump. You'll see that when somebody doesn't have a means of relieving that pressure, such as a sump pump or some other type of drainage system or irrigation system. And if you don't have that, then you will oftentimes, especially, I used to own a house in Laurel, and when I lived in Laurel, I had an underground spring that ran through my backyard, and we did not have a sump pump. And if you got a heavy enough rain, you would have some water come in the unfinished portions of the basement. So, at that point, it becomes a matter of whether you as the homeowner make the decision to purchase basement waterproofing. But at minimum, you certainly have to protect their belongings down there, because that type of water intrusion into a home is generally not covered. Kind of the same thing for downspouts. If the downspouts aren't routed properly, if landscaping is not routed properly, and that allows water to get in through window wells and things like that. Usually, if water touches the surface of the ground first and enters the home, it's not covered. And so that's one of the reasons that you want to make sure you have a sump pump system if possible. And if you do have a sump pump system, that you do purchase the additional coverage, which is usually required to get that included and covered as a claim. And then oftentimes you want to make sure you have an adequate amount. There may be different levels of coverage that are available for that. If you have an unfinished basement, a minimal amount of coverage, $10,000 or something like that may be suitable. But if you have a finished basement, I can tell you right now, you're not refinishing your basement and taking care of your personal belongings for $10,000 in most cases. So
let's talk about that, because most policies start at $5,000, and back in the day, actually, it was $2,500. Now most of the homeowners and/or property coverage, because when
is, and one of the reasons so many inexperienced adjusters out there, contractors are facing the same challenges in getting people to work right now, and that's been the case ever since COVID. When the government paid a lot of people to sit at home, a lot of people haven't gone back to work, and that's we're obviously not those people, but there are a lot of people that haven't for one reason or another. I can't speak to why they haven't, but I can tell you for certain there is a labor shortage in contracting. There's a labor shortage in manufacturing, which means that ordering new floors and cabinetry and all those things that we need in the industry to replace when something like this happens are long delayed. So if you have a basement and it's finished, sometimes people have tenants in there, or they have family members in there. Literally, they could be displaced for months. And you need to plan accordingly for that. And so I think that someone that's interested in, if they're putting their priority as saving $50 or $100 a year on insurance, and sometimes these endorsements are that low cost. It sounds like a lot when you're adding it to a policy that's $1,200 or $2,600, depending on the size of the home or whatever. But that $100 that you spend is well worth it when you're offset with a $45,000 or an $80,000 loss, or even a $25,000 loss. You look back at what the insurance company, how long is it going to take the insurance company to recoup that $25,000 from you at $100 a year? You made out by having the proper insurance, but if you don't have the proper insurance, not only do you have a very bad experience with the claim, through no fault of the insurance company at that point, but really because you decided you wanted to save a little bit of money up front. So it's unfortunate when we become educated about these things after a loss happens. It's much better if we listen to an agent who's explaining to us, hey, you can't, if you've got a finished basement, if you've got an area of the home that's going to cost a lot to refinish, you ought to adequately insure it.
Right.
And we ought to do that. We ought to listen to the agent that's explaining that to us rather than make plans after the fact, after we've suffered a loss.
Rather than shop price.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
let's
Very
talk
important.
about cracks in the foundation, because people confuse that with water coming in through the wall, right? Because you talked about pressure. And quite often I get calls about that because you know that your foundation is cracking. That's a maintenance issue. Anytime it's something that could have been fixed or eliminated or managed prior to a claim, it's a maintenance issue and not an accident or an incident. And I think a lot of people get confused. Your insurance is designed to cover incidences, things, acts of God. A lightning hits your tree, and you couldn't stop the lightning, didn't know it was coming. The tree falls down and damages stuff, but you've got cracks in your foundation. There must be due diligence done with the attempt to stop it from causing damage.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Cracks can be caused by, like you pointed out, just routine wear and tear. They can also be the result of earth movement. Earth movement's excluded in your insurance policy as well. And generally, that is something that can be addressed through proper landscaping, as you brought up right from the very beginning. If that water is directed in the right direction via landscaping, via the downspout extensions and things of that nature, and you're placing the water where it should go, away from the house and away from the foundation, you're less likely to have that extreme wear and tear, the cracking, the stress on the foundation that's going to create those issues. And then earthquakes is another potential cause of that. They are very infrequent in Maryland. I do believe we had a small one last year. I think the last major one prior to that was 2011, which was a very unusual situation. I did get a few calls of people that had cracked foundation back in 2011, but those are few and far between. So you do want to talk to your agent about earthquake coverage. I don't think most people in Maryland are going to benefit from it greatly, but that's just my opinion because we see so few claims from it, and you could end up paying. You'd have to tell me what it would cost because I've never accepted a quote on it. I've never denied a quote on it. I don't think generally that it's necessary, but if somebody wanted it, then there's somebody that can afford it. There's no reason not to do it. I mean,
Right.
we do have earthquakes in Maryland. There is that. But generally speaking, most of the causes of cracks in the foundation are not covered. I have seen a couple of vehicles strike buildings where they've cracked the foundation, and those are covered.
Right.
And also tree falls. So if a tree falls and strikes the house and cracks the foundation, that is covered. And as you pointed out, and we refer to it as sudden and accidental physical damage. So something that happens suddenly and accidentally, not an arson, but something that, in arson's covered as long as it's not done by the policyholder.
Right.
So sudden and accidental physical damage is generally what we're looking for a claim. So something that's continuous and ongoing, and that's what you have when you have most of your hydrostatic pressure or cracks in the foundation is continuous and ongoing seepage of water. And the policies usually refer to it as something that occurs over a period of weeks, months, or years. I don't know why they add the months and the years in there. Basically, when you get to 14 days, you're at weeks.
Right.
So if it's beyond 14 days and that water is occurring, no longer considered sudden and accidental. It's continuous and ongoing, and that is excluded in the policy. So it's important that if you notice something, that you do something about it right away.
Right. And we're going to talk about that in the second half about the process of filing a claim, understanding what your claim and the language that you should use, because people confuse backup sewer and drainage claims with flooding, and it's not the same thing. And I'm just going to be honest with you. At this point in our market, the insurance companies are going crazy, and they're looking for any reason to save money, which means to not pay out your claim. And the language that you use when you file a claim, which is why you should call an adjuster, it matters. Because it invites the perception. It invites them to have the opportunity to not pay your claim, and that's really important. But I want to get in before we take our station break. The issues of pipes bursting underground and it backing up into the house, into the yard, into the property. And what is the distinction? What's the distinction between when it's the city's or county's problem and your problem?
Well, there's on property and there's off property. So if the stoppage initially occurs off property, then it's usually going to fall to the municipality or the water and sewer authority, depending on how that's laid out. So in Montgomery County, it's WSSC. PG County is WSSC. They're not the municipality, but they are a bi-county agency that administers water in that area. And so if it occurs off property but it causes a backup into your property, you can actually go through WSSC to file a claim. I would strongly advise you to have sewer and backup coverage yourself and to use your own insurance for this. We probably don't have time before station break to explain that, but I will gladly do so. There's a very good reason for it, and it's to the tune of many thousands of dollars of difference from what you can collect with your own insurance versus what you would get from the local water and sewer authority.
Lately, there've been some incidences where the insurance companies, not all of them, are saying that was a city problem, so we're not going to cover it.
Yeah, and so the burden of proof usually falls on the policyholder. So one of the things you want to do, and if you call my office, we'll give you this advice for free. We won't charge you for it. We'll evaluate your claim for free. We won't charge you for that. Until we sign an agreement with you, we don't charge you anything. We don't charge you anything to have an initial phone call or even to just give you guidance and make referrals to you. One of the things I would say is you want to get a plumber right away. If you have water intrusion, you want someone that's an expert to figure out what's the cause of that. That plumber call may or may not be covered by insurance, depending on what they find. But you have to remember that in order to present a successful claim to the insurance company, you have to prove that you have a covered loss. And you have to prove what the value of that loss is. The only way you're going to be able to do that is by crossing T's and dotting I's, by gathering documentation. And your failure to do so will allow an insurance company to deny a claim that could be rightfully a rightful claim that you have the ability to move forward with. But if you can't prove different than what the insurance adjuster behind the desk is saying, and oftentimes they're not coming out anymore, so they're taking your word for it. And like you said, we'll talk about some key words that you need to avoid, I guess, after break, and I'll be happy to talk and expand on that. But you have to be ready to go. And so one of the ways that you're going to do that is by finding out exactly where that leak occurred, where that break occurred, where that obstruction occurred. And that's going to be the job of a plumber, who can often come out with a camera that runs on a scope through the pipes, and they can actually measure how many feet it is, and they can determine whether it belongs to the county, the city, the water authority, in your building or outside of your building on your property. So those are also some key distinctions.
Right. And even though the process of going through the county or the city is exhausting, it may be worth it. Because we are in a situation now where insurance companies are saying, that's a city problem. We'll fix the water damage, but we won't fix the pipe. The city needs to do that, and the city is not doing it, and it's still causing damage.
Right.